Hi, I'm Andy Pitts. Welcome to Saturday in the Shop, where we talk woodworking and I try to answer some of the questions that you've posted on my YouTube channel, Andy Pitts 1000. I received some questions on my recent video on making crab top boxes. Squid Skunk asked why, when I'm cutting the bottoms out of the big 9x24 blank of walnut, why don't I just bandsaw along the back, resaw along the back of the block and just let the boxes fall out? So we're talking about these bottoms here, and the answer is that when I start out with the blank, it's a nice finished back, and I can retain that back if I don't go and resaw along there. You know, when you resaw with the bandsaw, it makes a lot of tooth marks, and then you have to go and finish these backs again. So instead, I leave a tab on the top and the bottom, and then I use the bandsaw just to cut through those tabs, and then I don't have to do any refinishing. When I go to sand the sides on the edge sander, it takes the tabs off, and then I'm all done. Kurtwood asked another question here about setting the Z reference on the ShopBot. Now, if you look at the video, you'll notice I go into great detail about how to get that bit to the right Z height so it cuts through just the holly, leaving the crab. Typically, you would use either the top of the piece as a reference for your Z0, or you'd use the spoil board, the bottom of the piece, as a reference, and it's a whole lot easier to set that. But because of the variations of thickness in when I'm making the walnut and the holly and gluing them together, it really is difficult to get those thicknesses just right. So I figure, okay, look, what if I make the walnut a little big? What if I make the holly a little big? No problem if I'm using that interface glue line as the Z0. And so I just get down and I sight the bit along that line, you know, visibly sight it, and once I think it's just where it needs to be, I go ahead and raise it 0.1625 inches and then push set Z0, and bingo, that new position, which should be about the top of the holly, is now my 0 point, and that seems to work really well. I have an artist in the area who has maple countertops in her kitchen, and they're getting a little dinged up over the years, and she wanted me to come by and refinish them. So I did a little research. I just want to share with you what I found for refinishing maple countertops. The first thing I did was I sanded them down. I sanded them down to P220 grit, which was fairly smooth. Then I came in with mineral oil. Mineral oil never really cures. It always stays, you know, wet, so to speak, but it does soak into the wood, and it is something you can come back at any time and apply more. So I did about 4 coats of mineral oil, just rubbing it in with my hands, letting it sit for a half hour or so, you know, rubbing a little more in, and then the first couple of coats I just left and came back the next day because it was all soaked in. But after a while, you had to kind of, you know, get some of the excess off with a rag after it soaked in a whole bunch for, you know, a half hour or so. So I did about 4 coats of that, and then I took and I mixed up some of the mineral oil with just a little handful of grated beeswax using a water bath. I heated up a water bath, put a can in there with some mineral oil, sprinkled in a little beeswax. It's hard for me to say how much, you know, just a little bit. Too much, and when it cools, it'll harden, you know, to a hardened mass, and you'll know it. So I just sprinkled some in, let it melt, mixed it up real good, and I went ahead and did a coat of that as well. And then I finished up with a couple of coats of a product called Howard's Butcher Block Conditioner. And this is almost like what I mixed up here, except it's also got carnauba wax in it. So this is mineral oil, beeswax, and carnauba wax. And says it also has some vitamin E. I'm not exactly sure what that does, but must do something good. And I went ahead and put on a couple of coats of this. It goes on real easy. A little bit goes a long way with this stuff. And so we had about 6 or 7 coats on this a day apart. And then I was ready to turn the job over to the family, who fortunately they were out of town while I was doing this work. So now they're going to use some Howards every week for a month or so, and maybe every month, you know, do a coat of Howards on there. And you know, it doesn't get shiny finish the way, you know, oil that really cures does. But like I said, it's easy to repair. If you need to, you could go back and sand, or you can just apply more of this stuff and just enjoy the character. Okay, I've got another question here from Abel, and he was asking about my vacuum pumps that I use in some of my work. This is a pump that uses a rotary vane type pump. That's what I happen to have, and inside this end of this is just like a big water wheel. Looks like a water wheel kind of arrangement, and it's got these sliding vanes that are made of some kind of a graphite kind of material that, you know, self-lubricates, and that just basically picks up the air at the inlet and discharges it at the outlet and draws a nice vacuum. So I kind of like to use that because I can, you know, cycle it on and off really easy. My first type of pump was totally different. This is a Venturi type of pump. And the way this works, you hook up an air compressor hose to the inlet, the air comes through a little valve, an on-off valve, and through this Venturi. Now what the heck is a Venturi? Well, I drew a picture for you. This is a Venturi. What you got is, you got an air hose from an air compressor coming in here. The shape of this thing necks down. It's like a pipe that got squeezed in the middle. So you shoot compressed air in here, and that air, in order to get through this opening, it has to speed up because there's not as much area for it to go through. Same amount of air coming in, less area means it's got to go faster to get through. When it goes faster to get through, the pressure of the air drops. When the pressure drops, if you can hook your vacuum hose right at that point, you know, drill a hole through the pipe and hook your hose on there, then that means this thing's going to be trying to suck air out of your vacuum hose, and then it discharges to the atmosphere through a gradually wider opening. You know, so you hook up your compressor, comes through, the Venturi part is right here, the restriction, here's the vacuum hose coming off, and then it gets wider in here, and then they put a little muffler on the end so that it doesn't hurt your ears too bad because it's really loud. Well, I think that's it for today. I appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you next week.